Good afternoon and welcome to our discussion on state broadband grant programs. We'd like to start off by just mentioning that we have observed many states offering programs that are beginning to look very similar. For that reason, we thought we would share some successes and strategies with you that might be helpful. To start off with, we're going to talk about the Minnesota program, primarily because they've had a program that's been in existence since 2014 and it's been extremely successful. The program has been so successful that they've been asked by 25 other states to consult with them to help put together their bills to pass in legislation, to help set up their processes, and then also to put together their actual application forms. Minnesota has been involved in 56 of these Minnesota grant applications, plus we've been involved in applications in at least 7 other states. So we have a pretty good idea of what a lot of the states are asking for. Regarding the Minnesota program specifically, if you look at the table, it shows a variety of things, but in particular, I'd like you to observe that the number of dollars and applications that have been requested are significantly higher than the dollars and applications that are actually awarded. So the demand has been there all the way through the years that they've offered the program, and even up to the end here, it's still significantly different. So we're hoping that the programs will continue into the future. Regarding the actual application itself, they offer a maximum of 120 points. And I'll give you an idea of some of the categories that they score. Number 1, speed improvements and number of passings. They offer points according to the increase in speeds available and the higher number of passings that it's offered to. The next category is the percent of eligible costs requested. In the state of Minnesota, they only offer grant money for 50% of a project maximum. And you will be scored according to the amount you are requesting. The less you ask for, the more points you will receive. The next category is community participation. This would cover things such as, do you have verified financial commitments? Do you have community partners? And then also evidence of any community support. So such as support letters from businesses and residences and education, healthcare, et cetera. The next category is project readiness. Here they'll want to know things such as, do you have your funding partner secured? Do you have your design certified by an engineer? Do you have pre-construction requirements that are all identified? The next category that they look at is project sustainability. Here they're looking for things such as technical expertise within your organization. Is your organization even staffed to handle a network of this size? And then also financial statements that are provided adequately. Next category is economic development and community impact. Here they're looking for things such as from businesses, farms, community anchor institutions, educational facilities, healthcare, all of these types of organizations. Do you have the impact that is significant for those types of businesses and for residences? And so you'll be asked to describe what those impacts are. And then the last category is broadband adoption activities. And this will cover things such as, do you have tech support available for the community? Do you have training programs that you're offering to them? Do you have a low income assistance program that you offer? So these are just some of the ideas that we wanted to share with you that the state of Minnesota is asking for. And we just happen to know that they're very similar to what a lot of other states are asking for. With that, I'd like to introduce you to Terry Nelson, General Manager of Woodstock Communications. Woodstock has been very successful in applying for Minnesota grants and getting awards, and actually has a lot of those projects already built out. So with that, Terry.
Thank you very much, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. As Mark said, I'm Terry Nelson. I'm the general manager here at Woodstock Communications, and we are located down in the southwest part of Minnesota, where we serve 5 ILEC exchanges down here. We at peak, probably in the early 2000s, we were around 1,200 voice customers. And then in 2011, we completed all 5 of our exchanges to fiber to the home. And one thing about where we live, we have very limited growth opportunities. We're very ag-based communities here. And in 2016, 2017, we were seeing our numbers decline as a lot of ILECs were due to, losing landlines, less farmers out here, that type of thing. So we really took a hard look at what do we need to do to grow, and how do we grow, and where do we grow. As I said, we're, at that point, we were losing landlines. Our broadband was very saturated in our ILEC exchanges. And with the FCC uncertainty, we knew we had to grow the non-regulated side of the business. There's also the ACAM that's out there and what's going to happen next. So there's just all sorts of uncertainty. And we knew the only growth we have available is outside of our ILEC areas, because we're very small little towns, and they're not growing at all. And the one fact, we're surrounded by CenturyLink and Frontier. So we knew that, there's opportunities out there. And so in 2016, 2015, somewhere in there, we started looking at these border-to-border grants through the state of Minnesota. And we started planning, and the first thing we looked at some of these communities, where we can get a grant. One thing we found out right away is these communities have very little funding to help with projects. They don't have any experts on staff. They don't have an economic development crew. They don't know who we are, so name recognition, was a huge problem. So they don't trust us. And how do you build that trust between us and the city and the residents? So a couple strategies we come up with right away, 3 basic ones, I guess. We wanted to compete with the large providers such as Frontier and CenturyLink. We felt we could win against those large companies. Another strategy was any project we invested in, we wanted our return less than 8 years. And for the most part, we've been able to do that. And our goals for penetration, we look at like year 1, we want to be, end of year 1, we want to be at 40% or better. In year 2, 50%. And by year 5, 75%. And we have definitely met all of those goals. So the first town we looked at was Westbrook. It's a town of about 600. So we started working with the city and educating the town and the residents, and we felt that was very important to educate them on who we are, what type of technology we use, the fiber to the home, and what fiber to the home can actually mean for a community, the economic development side of things. And we worked with them on completing surveys, as Mark had talked about, the scoring criteria for the grant. These surveys and support letters from the community are very important. And so we had the city, helping us with that and pushing the residents to complete them and get them sent back. We had free use of the community center to hold informational meetings. We did some meet and greets, technology meetings, and then we also did some video option presentations because we don't offer a video package. We push the subscriber to online, streaming packages. So we held some presentations to explain the different options they could get. And they gave us some land to put on our 16 by 20 building. We built Westbrook in 2017, and today we're over 70% penetration. So we're on track for our goals. Just a couple success stories on in Westbrook on what it's done to the community. I guess it's always good to hear about them. There's a small hospital in town there. It's actually Westbrook is the smallest town with a full functioning hospital in the state of Minnesota. And they were having a lot of trouble with getting their data back to Sioux Falls, which is where the hub is. So they were having to turn customers away. Now that we have brought them broadband, they are able to bring them customers back in, and they're actually growing. And the Westbrook Walnut Grove Schools is another success story for this one. They hold a quarterly regional meeting in Westbrook at the community center there, and they bring 65 school districts to town every quarter. And they were being threatened of getting that taken away because at the community center there wasn't adequate broadband to handle the online seminars and that type of thing that they were trying to do. So as of today, yeah, they're still holding the meetings and bringing that many people to town every quarter. And then there's a family that had worked for Esurance and had been living in Sioux Falls the past few years, originally from Westbrook. Now that we brought fiber there, he is able to move back to Westbrook and enjoy the small town living, and brought his whole family with, so there's more kids in school, and just another success story. One more town that we had applied for was Ballatin, and this is a town of about 600 people also. It was a frontier town. We kind of use the same strategies, the same timeline to deploy the fiber and meet with the city. We did a lot of educating here again on who we are, the technology we use, what it means for economic development. And the one thing about Ballatin that was nice, they did have an economic development team, and they really helped push the surveys and just to get the residents to complete them. And here again, we use the community center multiple times for meet and greets and educational meetings. And Ballatin has a very good success story here also. There's a company called Relco True Shrimp. It's a shrimp farm, and they had purchased the old school in town, and they employ probably 70 people in town. And there was the threat of them having to move away because of broadband. There again, now that they have broadband, fiber broadband, they're able to do the meetings they need, and they're growing today. So we built that in 2018, and we're at about 65% penetration today. So we're on track for our goals. I thought it'd be worthwhile to explain a few of the challenges we saw when we were applying for the grants. We were successful in 3 awards, but 2 projects have been denied. And I'll explain a little bit of why they were denied and what we had done to try to remedy that. Ballatin, the town I had just talked about, was declined in 2017, but awarded in 18. So we had reapplied. Frontier challenged the process, and they were claiming that they had already offered the customers over 25 meg services, which we disputed that. And to resolve that, what we had done is build a speed test on our website and on Facebook that the customers could go to. It would ask them a couple questions, what are they paying for? What's the price? And then it would run a speed test, and it would log all that information, give us a spreadsheet of that, and then we could turn that in with our 2018 grant. And that's what we had done to give us a little more ammunition that the current provider wasn't providing what they said they were. And I made a note here about the local support, and Mark mentioned that also about how important the support is from the community, that you need to have letters of support, that type of thing. And recently in our grant, it became a requirement that not only they verbally support you, but they need to have some type of a financial commitment along with it. And that's a little more difficult. There's a few more challenges with that. And one that we had saw was they're concerned about supporting one company over the other. And I guess with some communication back and forth and some just them trusting us, I think we kind of overcame that. Another one was, of course, just a lack of funds, that these small communities, they don't have any. One way we did remedy that was we got a loan from the city. The city borrowed some money, and we promised to pay that back within, a short time frame. And there's some buildings that the city would give for offices, and some land for a building if you wanted to build. One thing we've taken advantage of is additional services because of the grant program itself. We started a wireless wave program, and a lot of that is because of the grant, where we've gone into Westbrook, or we've gone into Ballaton with fiber. Now we have fiber at a cell tower because we were in Ballaton and in Westbrook. So we've taken advantage and installed some point-to-point wireless equipment on these towers. We're able to reach customers out 7 miles. We're offering packages up to 75 meg. And the one thing that I really like about it is we're able to offer the whole community with broadband, and not just the town. Yeah, the wireless has a few drawbacks, but it's definitely a great option for some of these rural customers who just didn't have, adequate broadband. So today we have roughly 1,050 wireless subscribers on 23 towers. So that's really done well for us. And then VoIP services too. We're able to offer all these customers voice along with it. So it just has created a lot more opportunities for us. And just some more additional services. Schools, we joined a venture with a few other companies to serve 65 school districts in Southwest Minnesota with fiber. And part of that was because of the grant program. Not that we used grant dollars for this, but we had built out to Westbrook. Well, now we have fiber there, that type of thing. And same with cell towers. We serve multiple cell towers, all their backhaul traffic. Hospitals, the same way. We got all these little towns have a hospital, and it's run by Sanford and McKinnon out of Sioux Falls, so they need that direct connection. And now we're serving a lot of the hospitals in the area, banks, and multiple other businesses, that have regional, multiple locations, I guess is what I'm trying to say there, like elevators and feed companies and dealerships and banks. So because of the grants and some other opportunities, we have grown our customer base to nearly 3,000 subscribers, which has tripled our subscriber count over the last 3 to 4 years. And I thought I'd just give a couple observations after we've been in the program now for 4 or 5 years. A few things we've learned, marketing wise. I guess one thing, Facebook has definitely been our best marketing tool. It's fairly inexpensive. You can hit the target market, the areas you want. We've had great success with that, and it's a very reasonable marketing tool. Newspaper ads. The thing I have learned about newspaper ads, they work in some locations, and where we have found them to work is like in our small communities of Westbrook and Ballaton, where they have their own little paper that serves just their town and their rural residents. We've had success with those. The regional newspapers, we have not had success with those at all. So we have stayed away from that. The other thing that we have had success with is just, direct mailers and flyers. Those seem to work well also. One thing we have really started watching in our communities that we've overbuilt with this grant is ARPU. The average revenue per user. And the larger towns have a higher ARPU, and that's probably common knowledge. But for us, it's very interesting. We serve a few different towns, and a town of 1,200 has $10 higher ARPU than a town of 600. It just does, and I think a lot of that is due to there's younger families in the bigger town. There's more jobs, there's kids that need it for schools, that type of thing. Our one town of 600 population, it's a very elderly population, and they just don't need the larger packages. And another thing, and this is probably common knowledge also, but the larger providers, they just don't have a face in these towns, no presence. And, we've seen the more we sponsor, the more we're involved in school events, town events, parades, just, showing up at these activities. It really has made a huge difference, especially these towns that, they don't really know us. So, I guess that's one thing that we have really learned, that you need to be present in the towns there. So, and I guess, Mark, that's basically what I had for today.
Okay, thanks a lot, Terry. Appreciate it. So lastly, I just wanted to finish up with talking a little bit more about what some of the states are emphasizing and some of the strategies to consider, or at least think about, before you submit an application or applications. We do have a lot of companies that submit multiple applications. In fact, we think we've had a client that served, I think they provided 5 or 6 applications one particular year. So there's a lot of activity in this arena. First off, I just wanted to make mention that states often award their dollars throughout the state. So they want to make sure that those dollars get spread out. And what that's made a lot of companies think about is, number one, are there very many of our neighbors that are submitting applications? Because if there's too many in one corner, we're probably not going to get that many. And secondly, what about your own territories? Do you have very many applications you're going to submit all in the same area? Secondly, the thing I wanted to talk about is the community support letters. I touched on it earlier, Terry touched on it briefly. That has become a much bigger item in just the last 2 or 3 years. It's always been on the application, but they're starting to give community support a much bigger consideration when they look at how many points they're going to award. The third item I wanted to mention is that the state of Minnesota in particular, and we've heard it from only one other one so far, but they are starting to put a little bit more preference on projects that are getting dollars funded from more than just the owner and the state. So in other words, they're looking for other participation, whether it be from businesses or whatever other sources you could come up with, partnerships, that type of thing. So they're starting to really look at that more. The next slide shows the first item being that this might be obvious, but unserved is often the biggest priority, and then they look more at underserved. So they not only according to the maps, but they want you to show that those needs are there. So for example, you want to go out, you want to look at census data and start providing things like low income and population drops and just a whole variety of other things, free and reduced school lunches, those types of things. So in a lot of cases, they're looking for support for that. Also, another thing they're looking at is multi-year applicants. So for example, if you're a company that has applied for grant money 2 or 3 years in a row and you have been awarded and you are successful with those projects, they put some favor toward that because they know that these are projects that are successful, that this is a company that is capable of it. They've lived up to all the expectations in the application and they are successful. The reason they are is because there are applications out there where they were not as successful. And so they view that very favorably. And then lastly, I just wanted to make mention that applications are getting better every year as more of these companies are competing with other applications. They know they need to put more into them. So the bar is actually rising a little bit, I think, for competing for these state grant dollars. And that's all we had. Hopefully it's helpful. And I guess at this point, we'll entertain any questions during the program. Thank you very much.